Welcome to the season finale of Jori's Sports Stories. I'm Jori, your host, and we got a lot of NFL talk, top 10 coaches, and some CFB talk, WNBA discussions, and more. Join us as we close out season 2 the right way. So tune in, turn your volume up, and let's get it. First things first, we're going to start off in the NFL. In today's NFL docket, we're talking about some of the contract holdouts. I'm going to give my list of top 10 NFL coaches. And we're going to have some Titans talk and some other things. So, it'll be a segment you don't want to miss. Without further ado, let's get it. First things first, we're going to start off with our contract holdouts, and I'm in other types of holdouts as well, meaning Jonathan Taylor, because I don't think that's necessarily it. I mean, it is a contract dispute, so we'll include it in that as well, but it did turn into the whole debacle, all right? But we're going to discuss Chris Jones, Nick Bosa, Jonathan Taylor, and the state of holding out. So first, with Chris Jones' situation, he was placed on the reserve, did not show up list. Now, I don't know if that takes his pay away or anything. I'll have to do some more research about that. I'll have to get back with you guys on that sometime during the week. During my vacation, I'm going to New York on Thursday, so you won't be getting a new episode, but that we're getting way ahead of our britches. Chris Jones. But what does that mean for him and the Chiefs? It means, well, to me, it means that Chris Jones is willing to go as far as to show the Chiefs that they need him. He's willing to miss out on money to prove his own point. It doesn't necessarily, it makes sense to him because he feels like he's in the space that he can lose a little bit of money because he's going to make the big bucks in the end. He could do that. I'm not saying that he can't. But he's willing to go that far to prove a point to Kansas City. Because one thing's first. That man is, I'm not going to sit here and lie. That man is pretty much half of the Chiefs' defensive production as far as sacks and getting to the quarterbacks. They're not nearly as good when he's not on the field and he's not around. So, like I said, that speaks for itself. Let the Chiefs trot out there with the improved teams in their division with a lackluster defense without Chris Jones. Do they have any bigger safeties? Do they have anybody other than Chris Jones that can get to the quarterback? Because he's half the production. But let the Chiefs trot out there with improved teams. Like they have the Lions, who have a very good offensive line, actually. The Lions have one of the better offensive lines in football. Can you believe that? How well they ran the ball last year when they got it going. So, you have the Lions and you don't have your best pass rusher. Because he's probably going to sit out week 1. We can scratch that. Because that's Thursday. So, I don't know how long this would take, if we're going to be completely honest. He said he's willing to sit out till week 8. I don't think it's going to take 8 weeks for the Chiefs to come to their senses and realize we need to pay this man. They're going to lose some games that they should win, that normally they would have won, but because the defense is not as stout as it used to be because somebody's holding out for whatever monetary reason it is. He wants to get Aaron Donald money, and I understand. He deserves Aaron Donald money. But I think he does. Like I said earlier in the season, he is the best interior defensive lineman in the league right now. I'm sorry for anybody who's apparently got their butt up Aaron Donald's behind, but I think Chris Jones done took him this time. And we're being completely fair. So when you have that's holding out, and he wants Aaron Donald type money, which is like 20, is it like, I don't even think it's $30 million a year. It's somewhere up there because he's scheduled to make 19.9. But Jeffrey Simmons is making 24. He wants somewhere close to the 30 mark. That's where I was about to go. It was the 30 mark. So, and they aren't even close on a deal. But the optics of it, they're going to lose some games that they normally would have won because of Chris Jones. If we know what Chris Jones' impact is, you can compare him to like a Patrick Mahomes or a Kelsey on the defense. He affects just about anything. So, you have folks out here on the internet just acting a fool, begging and pleading to pay this man so this man can come back. Travis. I mean, they ought to pay him. Once they start losing, like, I feel like they're going to lose a few games. Like, you know how the Chiefs operate. They look like the Chiefs at the end of the year. But sometimes during the middle, they stink. For whatever reason, Patrick Mahomes ain't clicking. Something ain't right. Someone done got their marbles knocked. I don't know. But usually during the middle of the season or the beginning, they don't look like the Chiefs. And that's a fact. So, they'll pay the man. I don't think it's going to take 2 months. I give them 3 weeks. They'll budge after 3 weeks. Especially if they start 0-3. I'm not trying to plant no bugs, but I mean, I'm not. Hold on. Because if I can look up their schedule, give me a second. I know they have the Chiefs, the Lions first. I can't spell. They have the Lions first. They have the Jaguars second, and then they have the Bears. Now, the Jaguars were scrappy with them in the playoffs. That I will admit, coming from a Titans fan, I will admit, they were very scrappy with them in the playoffs. It's very obvious, it's very plausible that if you don't have your best pass rusher to get to Trevor Lawrence and affect Trevor Lawrence and the rest in that run game and all of that, they will beat you. So if they lose Thursday and then they lose on the 17th, and then they're going to the Bears, who I think will have an improved offense and an improved offensive line, and it's a glaring need, yeah, they'll budge. That's why I say give it 3 weeks. Because those 3 games are games that they theoretically should win. If they lose a few of those, red flag, sign the man. Like, wave the red flag, sign the man. And then another one we got is Nick Bosa. Once again, this is if I'm Nick Bosa or Chris Jones, I'm literally just letting you guys just trot out there without me. Especially if I'm in a position where I can afford to not play. Trot on out there without me. And contrary to Chris Jones' situation where the defense don't even look the same without him on the field, I believe, a part of me does believe that without Nick Bosa, the defense will still be very good, albeit it'll be very different. And they'll have to pray that it's nothing too negative, but I still think it'll be able to stand on his head. Makes sense? We all know what Nick Bosa does for that defense. He has a defensive player of the year for a reason. He's an absolute O-line obliterator. You better ask Dallas. when he's healthy. And I think Nick Bosa got some injuries. If he got some injuries, let me know, because I remember him having some injuries. That might be the hold up on his whole payday. But at the same time, everybody gets injured. Pay the man. Now, if he goes down right after him getting paid, that sucks. But pay the man, because you're going to need him come playoff time, because we know that the San Francisco 49ers will probably be in the playoffs at the end of the season. But I'm not saying Super Bowl, I say playoffs, but that's neither here or there. If they don't want to play Nick Bosa, somebody else will, and I'll bet you that. But I think John Lynch will pay him. I'll put that out there too. Jonathan Taylor. And I feel like this has been a whole saga for about a month. And I'm going to break it down into what I really think after learning what we learned. Which is that Jim Irsay has been seeing the bottom of a bottle for a little bit too much. Or the end of something else. Look. There is only one reason for the foolery in Indianapolis right now. Jim Irsay. And you kind of have to feel bad for Chris Ballard, who has to do his job to a very high level with an arm behind his back. Those who get it, get it. And if you don't, look it up. Now, Irsay wanted, apparently, well, this is not apparent, it's because it's true, Jalen Waddle and a second-round pick for Jonathan Taylor to go to Miami. And then, because Green Bay came out that they were interested, even though they have two running backs that are very capable, he wanted Christian Watson and somebody else and maybe a pick or two for Jonathan Taylor to Green Bay. I'm going to be very clear here, because who in their right mind? What the hell? I'm going to chalk it up to this. Jim Irsay knows he don't want to trade him. And he ain't paying him either. He knows what Jonathan Taylor means for Anthony Richardson. And this is where the saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too. He wants his cake and he got to eat it. And this is not the situation for that. Certain situations you can get away with it. This is not one of them. It's definitely not going to work. So he's asking for an unreasonable trade compensation as a delay tactic. Because ain't no way on this green earth, blue and green earth, a reasonable person would ask that. Jim Irsay would ask that, but he's not a sensical person. He's not a reasonable person. He's Jim Irsay. And I know that Jonathan Taylor knows what Jim Irsay is doing right now. He's finding these trade partners, and Jim Irsay is coming up with these crazy, out-of-the-world, belong on the UFO trade demands because he doesn't want to give them up. And he refuses to accept that this is where you're at with your relationship. This relationship is no longer fixable. This is not repairable. This is not a tenable situation. Everybody knows this. And if I'm Jonathan Taylor, I'm glad I'm not one of these people in those situations, because I would have had a fit, because I'm a spoiled brat myself. And if I don't want to play for Indianapolis, I'm not playing for Indianapolis. Period. And that's just on that. So all of this, he's going to be gone for at least week 5. But I'm not playing at all if I'm him. I'm going to hold it out for as long as I can. I believe the trade deadline is Halloween. I said that last week. The trade deadline is Halloween. But Jonathan Taylor, I feel for him, because he's dealing with somebody who's genuinely not a good human being. And I might be a little harsh when I'm saying that, but I'm not lying either. He's not a good human being. How many times have he said comments that kind of just, huh? And him opening his mouth and pressing send on a Twitter or X post or whatever it is now is what got him in this situation in the first place. Because all he had to do was shut up and not press send. And now you're on the verge of losing. No, you're going to lose your best running back that you've had in a minute. And you're going to put your quarterback, your rookie quarterback, and Anthony Richardson in a horrible situation. Even though he's already in a pretty bad one. Like, But I like to watch them implode. Good for me. Good for me. Now, something a little bit more lighthearted. We're going to talk about my top 10 head coaches. Don't ask me where Mike McCarthy is. Do not ask me where Sean Payton is. Don't ask me where certain people are because they're not on there for a reason. These are my lists. And if you have a problem with my list, you can go cry to your mama about it because I don't care. My opinions. One, and these really aren't in necessarily of an order. Well, the first three are. But after 4, we can really switch. So, 1, we got Andy Reid. We know what he's done with his play calling and having Mahomes. And we know that they have 2 Super Bowls because of it. They've been to the Super Bowl 3 times. We know what Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and what type of magic they've made. We know what Andy Reid was doing with Alex Smith, which was pretty decent as well. Andy Reid also won a Super... Did he? No, he didn't win one in Philly. He didn't. He may have. I might not be old enough to remember that. But he did some wonders in Philly. I do know that, even though they hate him over there. But I'm not getting into that, Philly fans. They get to play Ring Around the Rosie pre-snap. That's what they do over there in Kansas City. Spin around and then go toss touchdowns. That was hilarious, by the way. He's an offensive light bulb. I don't know what that means, but it makes sense. He's very bright. He's like an LED light bulb. Like the ones that you really don't like on a car at night. That. Nick Sirianni, number 2. Super Bowl, period. What he's been able to do with that team, getting them to get 70-something sacks, somewhat fixing the rushing the football issue, even though it kind of leaked a little bit in the NFC Championship game and in the Super Bowl. What he's been able to, like that Philadelphia team, I feel like you can't really, like that run was so well put together from top down, from the team, from the coach, from the GM putting the players in place. It was just so well put together, and how the coach corrected some of the issues throughout the season, and how he was able to adapt when Jalen Hurts got hurt. Chef's kiss. I like Nick Sirianni, and his daughter's cute too. He's a solid head coach, and he was able to get the best out of an improved Jalen Hurts. Kyle Shanahan, and I really doubt his place should be on here because him and John Lynch are making some very questionable decisions over there in 49er world, and I think 49er fans would agree that they're questionable, but I really doubt he should be here due to his fumbles at quarterback. But with the way that he manages to scheme the run and how he tends to make quarterbacks better than what they actually are, Jimmy Garoppolo, I have to see more from Brock Purdy. Unless last year was just a fluke. Excuse me. It's second to none. 4, Zach Taylor. I got to acknowledge the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. because we're on the cusp of seeing Cincinnati roll due to the combination of Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. Is Tyler Boyd still a Bengal? Yeah. Him and the front office are actively trying to keep pieces there and establish well. He saw the issue, secondary, and they did address it throughout the draft. Like when Joe Burrow needed offensive line, what did they do? They put it together for him. Because they weren't going to let that prized possession get sacked 100 times by year 5. Even though I think he might have been sacked 100 times already. He took punishment because the first year he tore his ACL or broke something. The second year he took all that punishment. This year he really got to cook. Or is my time different? Yeah. Number 5. Mike Tomlin. He hasn't had a losing season. And from what I'm seeing through preseason, I like what he's done in revamping that defense with them. And him and Canada may have something cooking with Kenny Pickett and George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth and them. And that defense was really solid. Now, what really stood out to me was the way, I know that the Buffalo Bills are without Von Miller for their first few games, right? But the way in that preseason game that their starters, that the Steelers starters carved up the Bills starting defense, it was kind of showed a little bit. It showed what the Steelers could be if they were. I feel like they could be a tad bit better than that though, if they're actually clicking and rolling on 5 cylinders in a real game. Yeah, they can look better than what they looked during those series in versus Buffalo. Mike Tomlin, y'all said that. Oh, another Mike. My Mike. Vrabel. And this is not homerism. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not homerism. Just because I'm a Titans fan does not mean this is going to be homeristic. This man has a Coach of the Year award for a reason. For always getting the best of all of his players, no matter how long you were there. You could be there for 2 hours. He's going to get the best out of you. His team embodies who he is, and they always compete. But last year was definitely played with injuries and O-line issues. This year, we will definitely see improvement. And we were 1 game against Jacksonville, which was close, I think. My memory's kind of shoddy right now. From winning a division and having all of those issues. But that's neither here or there. If you can hear Bella, I'm sorry. Brian Dable. The Giants went to the playoffs, and that was not a fluke because of this man changing the culture. I believe that was his first season. If I'm wrong, correct me. I'm not afraid of it. I'm just thinking that last year was his first season. Yeah, I believe so. Him and Saquon teamed up to fix Daniel Jones and his foolishness. Give him a few years to kind of refix and retool the roster to his liking. And I believe that the Giants, we might see some improvement from them. Pete Carroll was a low-key genius to offload Russ when he did. And to swindle Denver. Because they sold Denver a living until Russ proved otherwise. They sold Denver a lemon. And he got to the playoffs without him. He will restore that. I have faith that he will restore that defense back to some shine, especially the rush defense. And he has the offense right now to cause some type of trouble. I believe that they're a dark horse to win that division. The Rams won't be winning that division, and neither are the Cardinals. So that eliminates 2 teams right there. LOL. Number 9. Mike McDaniel. And what he's been able to do with Tua is, quite frankly, special with how Waddle with Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think Brian Flores kind of gave up on Tua too early. He didn't really want him. And now that his defense minus Christian Wilkins, who's also holding out, I forgot to mention him, is better off a little bit. We will see a step being taken in the positive direction. They could overtake, if they play well for the all season, they could overtake Buffalo. Doug Peterson. And I really don't want to address the Jaguars, but I have to admit their Cinderella run last year was impressive. I might be a hater because of my fandom, but I will never be too woman enough. I will never not be woman enough to give credit where credit is due. Jacksonville is on the uptick, managing to steal a division and win a playoff game, in which we know how it started. And it wasn't just they won a playoff game. 4 interceptions in the first half. And a hot mess. And then they had a pep talk, whatever they did in the locker room. And came out and pulled the batteries out the Chargers. Now, will they do it again, or was that a Cinderella run? That's my question. Jeez. Now, we're going to go to my Titans talk. And, Lord, today I'm going to talk a little bit about expectations, improved O-line, better wide receiver play with DeAndre Hopkins. Excuse me, it's 9:30 at night. Yeah, it is what it is. Pass rush is going to be miles ahead. Faster, meaner, stronger. I've seen that through the offseason. I just took a look at my players. When you have like Harold Landry, Denico Autry, Tierra Tart. No, this is what my starting defensive line is projected to look like, ladies and gentlemen. Tierra Tart is probably going to be my nose tackle. My defensive tackle, my IDL is going to be Jeff. My ILB is going to be Harold Landry. My outside linebacker is probably going to be Arden. And I got a few other dogs on that line. That's scary. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but that's not even that's top 10, and that's borderline top 5 material, if you ask me. If you just ask me. But, like I said, hope injuries, I pray to God, don't kill us. And my secondary should be better. They should be healthier. Like I said, injuries killed me. I'm going to let you guys know this is going to be a brief segment. I had a rough day today. A brief segment. So, some names to watch on my Titans. One, I've been ranting and raving about some Caleb Murphy. I love me some Caleb Murphy. I'm so glad he made the 53. Now, he might not play much, but when he do, he's a wrecker. That man is a natural-born wrecker. Peter Skoronski. Last year, my offensive line was about as good as a piece of Swiss cheese. My Chihuahua could have did better at blocking. But that's neither here nor there. I need to see, and I've seen what Peter Skoronski can do all off season. I feel like he's going to translate well. He's going to be an anchor for that line. Aaron Brewer is going to be at a more natural position, which is center. He put on some weight so he could play center. Hopefully they can get it together. Him and Tannehill need to get it together. We're going to end up having to watch for Arden Key. He's very disruptive. We stole him from Jacksonville. Azeez Al-Shaair, depth. He's borderline of starting ILB himself. So if I have 2 of them on the field, I don't mind both of them being on the field. And we're going to have to watch for Sean Murphy-Bunting, one of my new cornerbacks, because he's very solid. I feel like he's very solid. Bottom line, my team is not going to be trash. Contrary to popular belief, we are going to compete or win the division. I mean, contrary to popular belief, I don't know what is with the media in disrespecting my team. This is not the time for that. Show everybody a little bit of decency, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the SEC a little bit. I kind of wanted to hide this in here because I'm an Alabama fan. And I've been hearing, oh, Jalen Milroe this, Jalen Milroe that. Well, did you like Jalen Milroe then? When he did that? The man had 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns. He was 13 of 18. He had a 217 QB rating. Alabama will be fine. We will be fine. Now, I know that's just week 1. And next week, we got a test with Texas. But that Alabama defense, plus now that I'm not worried about my receivers anymore. Well, I still kind of am. But we have some speedy receivers. I got a good running game again. And Milroe, as much as he can throw the ball, that boy is an athlete himself. So I don't know why people are just, Alabama. Is it Alabama fatigue? Is it Alabama fatigue? You tired? Because we took a few seasons, like 2 or 3 seasons to reload. And that's fine. It took a recruiting cycle or 2 to replace what we lost. And that's perfectly fine too. We back now. I believe we could be back now. I don't think we would ever win anywhere, but Tennessee might be a challenge, but not really. I'm not scared of Ole Miss or Auburn, and Mississippi State dang sure ain't on my level at all. LS who? Yeah, whatever. I feel like Alabama will be top of the division, and I'm proud to stand on that. Roll Tide. Period. Next, we got the WNBA. We're going to talk about teams like the Storm and the New York Liberty and what's going on in Los Angeles and some other things. So we got some things to discuss. I'm not going to talk about the fever. I'm not going to go on the fever-induced rant. I just can't do it to myself today. But I do have a rant about another team that I really decided that I liked like a few weeks ago. And then, oh my Lord. But without further ado, let's get into it. First, we're going to talk about the New York Liberty, and bottom line is they have hit their stride. They have won their last 4 games by 65 points combined. So they really don't have any issues with consistency shooting. They're averaging 9.5 rebounds per game in that stretch. They're able to go get it off the glass. They have good spacing. They're a very well-rounded team right now. They're a little high on turnovers, I agree. I do think. Yeah. And role players like Courtney Vandersloot and Jonquel Jones, who is more of a supporting star because it's in a way you can look at this New York Liberty team as kind of like a super team. Well, it is a super team, but you can look at the big 3 of the team being Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Iyonsa. Like I said, it's 9:30 at night. I can't talk. Sabrina Iyonsa, whatever. Her. And Jonquel Jones, that's a trio. That's why I'm like, she's more of a supporting star. I think they could be looked at as a big 3 too. It helps with that duo of Iyonsa and Stewart. It makes it a little easier. Because I remember the past few games, Courtney Vandersloot has went off. Breanna Stewart still gets a double-double. And then there's good ball movement. Like the New York Liberty have, and the Las Vegas Aces, who I'm not talking about right now, today, they have very good ball movement, I've noticed. Next. Now, when I took my notes for this, I put the straight-faced emoji next to this team's name because I knew I wasn't very happy with them. The Dallas Wings. This team, the one thing this team is consistent at doing is being inconsistent. Like, how do you be consistently inconsistent? Like, make that make sense. Some days they shoot 38.6% from the field and 24.1% from the three. That was their last game versus the Sky, I believe, that they lost. And some days, was it the Sky? It was somebody. They lost their last game, and those were the shots from one of their games, one of the last two. And that's what the stat was from them. And they played them about a day or two apart. So, and it's the exact same team, which kills me. And then some days they shoot 50.6% from the field and 58.3% from the three. And watch what happens when they actually take care of the ball. And if I sound like I'm reading that with being sarcastic, I am. Because that's common sense. What happens when you take care of the ball, you win the game. I'm going back at the stats and looking at these highlights, and I'm seeing that this team is very talented. They can stretch the floor. When they can get their legs out from under them, it's pretty much they can play with the best. Not right now because they're too inconsistent. But if they're on and they're playing like a Las Vegas or a New York, they can hang in there. They can play with the best, but they're not always on all the time. And quite frankly, it's aggravating when they, like I said, when they can really stretch the floor. But it's also quite frustrating when they struggle in half-court sets and their defense looks confused and their shots aren't falling. And they're turning the ball over like an idiot. Can you imagine what this team could be when they're being consistent? Can you imagine that? Like, come on. And the Seattle Storm. Bottom line is that this team is Jewel Lloyd in a bag of chips. And despite the shooting, they are consistently turning the ball over a bunch. And they do get out physical in the paint. Go get some defense and better supporting players. Because Jewel Lloyd, she should be an MVP. The 5 or 6 games that they won because of her 9 times out of 10, if we're being completely honest. And sometimes her putting up 30, 35 points is not enough. It's not. I mean, they're very good at rebounding. They have no defense. Their spacing is poor. The timing looks a little bit off. They look like they're out of sync. I was talking about this with these type of issues with the Lynx earlier. And now we're talking about it with the Storm. They need to get better in the offseason. Jesus Christ. And put a team together. I know they lost a lot when they lost Breanna Stewart and some other pieces. But they need to get it together. Honestly. This team is just two or 3 years ago removed from a WNBA championship, I believe. I'm not lying either. They've won the championship recently because Stewie was one of their players then. That was recent. Moving on. We're going to talk about the Sparks. This team is lacking something. It's lacking something. It's lacking something. Cohesion is one thing. Health is another. Depth in the roster size isn't it. Roster size, I believe that's a league-wide issue. If they expanded the roster size in the WNBA, you'd get better basketball in place of it, but that's neither here nor there. And despite all of this, they've won 6 games in August, and they are playing now. I could check the score. Right, currently, they are up on the Mystics 64 to 58 with 2 minutes left in the fourth. So, yeah. Now, next team I'm going to talk about is we're going to talk about the Atlanta Dream because they have not been playing well, and I don't know what's going on. Like, they've beaten the Mercury. They lost to the Fever by 3. Everybody beats the Mercury. You beat you lose to the Sparks. You lose to the Aces. You beat the Sky. And you lose by like 20-something, 10-something. You lost to the Storm. Like, they've been on, they're so inconsistent. They're right up there with Dallas. Like, they're just about right up there with Dallas and being inconsistent. Like, when they can score, when Ryan Howard can score, and when this team can space the ball accordingly, like, that's something I've always watched Atlanta, and I've always liked to see when I've watched them play the Dream. They got good ball movement. They have good spacing when they're on. This team is so inconsistent. They're just right up there with the Wings. But I don't think they're as talented as the Wings are when they're on. But they're up there with just as bad as how as inconsistent that they are. Make sense? I hope it do. Because I know Cheyenne Parker's pretty good. Ryan Howard is a dog. Alicia Gray. Is it Alicia Gray? Yeah. Hold on, because I want to get my names right. Yeah, it's Alicia Gray. She's pretty good. And I don't know. I don't know if it's something that I do realize one thing I did get about watching the Dream is that their defense does need some work. But their biggest thing is inconsistency. So 2 things, if you don't get anything from the segment. The Dallas Wings and the Atlanta Dream need to be more consistent. The Las Vegas Aces, whom I was not talking about in this segment today, and the New York Liberty are on a roll. The Connecticut Sun is just there. The Mercury are up to no good. The Los Angeles Sparks are one injury from the NECA and company, are about a plague of illnesses away from having to go find people my size to play with. The Storm, the Lynx, the Mercury, they're just horrible. That's the state. Like, some teams are already getting eliminated, so I can't really pull that up right now. But maybe the first episode of season 3 will go through who's been eliminated from WNBA playoff contention. I know for a fact the Storm is probably going to get eliminated. The Mercury are going to get eliminated. Those teams are probably going to get eliminated first, if they haven't been eliminated already. So, yeah. And now, we're going to talk, and this is not an intro to anything. We're just going to have a little bit of a little rant around. Maybe we can just go ahead and say this is like our edition of Jori's timeout session for this week. We have a date for season 3, which is going to be September 19th. Like I said, I'm going to New York this week. I will be back on Sunday. Yeah, because I'm leaving Thursday, I should be back on Sunday. So you won't get an episode on Wednesday or Saturday. But I will try to give you guys some content, whether it's a short or a reel or something like that, Monday when I come back. The Monday I'm back. But yeah, so that's a brief hiatus. This episode actually took a long time for me to get out. And it's because your girl here hit the ground at work for the second time in 2 weeks. And pain. But that's neither here nor there. I am okay. Other than sore and angry and irritable. But yeah. But for season 3, I got some other things I wanted to kind of sort of reveal. Like, we'll be probably, because it's in the middle of football season, and football is my thing. So most of my episodes, like the long version of these episodes, will probably be all football. But what I'm planning on doing, because WNBA will be starting their playoffs soon, NBA will be coming back with preseason, and I kind of want to cover that type of stuff too. I might do some mini episodes during the week. We might start setting up some type of, I have to get it together, but I might do mini episodes later on during the night to get that type of stuff out for you, or shorts and reels and stuff like that. Short form episodes during the seasons, and maybe some surprise. Maybe some live streams. I might even get on camera. Y'all know I am not comfortable on camera yet. But if you catch me over on Sports Empire Network on Wednesdays on the Coffee and Sports Morning Show, you do get to see me on camera. And at some Mondays, I do be on Cheap Seats. Shameless plug. Shout out to all my guys, because they support me. Kyle and them, they support me. Major surprise, I got some other things planned. I can't really tell you about them yet. You probably won't know until the actual first episode of that comes out. But I have some other things planned. Fingers crossed. And we just, over here at Jori Sports Stories, we're focused on growth. So if you like what you hear, you can follow us over on Instagram at JDS_sports stories. Over on Twitter at Jori Stories, JORISSTORIES. I have a Discord. You can just click the link in the bio. Not click the link in the bio. If you're listening to this on YouTube, the link to my Discord will be to the Discord server will be in the not comments, in the description. What else do I have? Yeah, that's about it. But we'll follow the podcast, share the podcast. We can grow the podcast. You know, shameless plug. We're all trying to reach a common goal here. LOL. Well, that does it for season 2 of Jori Sports Stories. So, tell me, what did y'all enjoy about the season? Did you have any favorite moments of any episode? Anything I could do better? What you wanted to hear next? For next season, I'll take suggestions. But once again, I'm your host, Jori, and stay tuned for season 3, and that's when Crazy Football Girl comes out. So watch for more rants and plenty of attitude. Plenty of it. So drop a like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, follow us on social medias for more, and I will see y'all on the 13th. Once again, thank y'all for listening. See y'all later.